What up, world? What's going on? It's your boy, the author. Right back at that ass again. There's another one. What's going on? I just wanted to reach out to you guys and make this next quick video. I was thinking about doing a live show, but I think I'll just get a few more subscribers before I start doing that. But you don't have to have a certain number, but I want to touch on a few topics that I think that you guys are interested in. I've been getting some good feedback in the comment section. I've been receiving more subscribers, so hopefully if everything keeps going the way it's going, I can initially or eventually have a live show for you guys. Hopefully eventually be able to have a way where you guys can call in and things of that nature once I get everything set up. But I was going to start off with the live show, maybe one day do a few podcasts. But this video is going to basically be about the weak leadership of older black men that I saw, growing up. Now, I made a previous video that talked about pretty much how alpha male marriages in the black community would ultimately save or help save the black community. But I saw, and then I was saying how black females, yes, they're in a bad position. They're doing a horrible job, I think, as a whole, with maintaining our communities. And the evidence of their horrible job is the results of the test scores from our kids, the violence, the uprising violence in the inner city schools, the violence on the streets. Yes, black women are doing a horrible job in raising our kids, but I mentioned that black male leadership or lack thereof is a major factor that has contributed to that. Now, I do realize, of course, that the government has taken black women and placed them above black men in terms of employment and things of that nature, and even they take care of black women the government takes care of black women on the front and back end, meaning on the front end, if they're higher achievers, they'll get more, or average achievers, they'll get more jobs than black men. On the low end, if they're on social services, they'll continue to get funding just for having kids. And it's very hard for them to lose their kids. And I mean, like I saw this one video with the female from the Bronx, or I think she's from the Bronx. She took her 5-month-old baby, took him by the feet, and slammed him against the wall, killing him. Now the state knew this female from the Bronx was an unfit mother. They had taken from her other children. But she had 3 that was still with her. They let her keep those kids, and then even when they take your kids from you, they can give those kids, the female can get those kids back. I repeat, so even when they take the kids from the females that are unfit parents, they can get the kids back and then abuse them all over again, or abuse the ones they have. Even though the state took 2, they still have 3. They can still abuse them. And some reasons the reason why the state gives them back is because the state already has a shit ton of kids that no one wants. And on the adoption list, black children are at the bottom, or quote unquote copper color, brown skin, so-called African American children are at the bottom of the list. No one wants them in terms of adoption. You have some rich celebrities that will take some lucky African American kid who's lucky enough to be, adopted by a rich white parent. But for the most part, no one, young black boys are at the very bottom, and the only ones, that's immediately above the young black boys is young black girls in terms of adoption rates. You know, society. So most of society doesn't want to adopt a young black male or female, so they end up bouncing around from one home to the other. The homes are packed. The juvenile facilities are packed. So, the state would rather give the kids back to the female by default because they don't have enough institutions to pretty much handle the influx of unwanted children here in the U.S. It's a topic that doesn't really get too much attention, and a lot of people don't understand it. But it should get more attention. Antoine, I think it was the Antoine Fisher story. He kind of touched on that. It's a true story about this naval veteran. And when he was in, his story is a lot like mine. Because when I went in, I wanted to initially find my father's side of the family. I wanted to speak with them. And I ran into a guy who said he thought he knew some Canada's. My side of the family. But Antoine Fisher was in the service, and he connected with his family when he joined the Navy. Joined the Navy just like I did. And he was talking about how I think his mother was a drug addict, and he was a ward of the state. He was with the state, and he was talking about how he went to a home that didn't want him. He was talking about how black boys were the last on the list in terms of children that were wanted by other families. And in his teenage years, he talked about being homeless for a while. But he just bounced from one home to another until he joined the Navy. And he eventually found his own family. But that's a big problem in the black community as well. And with the black community being virtually broken, kids that are unwanted, kids that are unwanted, just go straight to the state. And because it's not like back in the day where we used to take care of our own in the 50s and 60s, in the 40s and 50s, where if no one wanted a black kid, or if a black man was down on his luck and he was just like with Lackawanna Blues. It was a show that was on HBO. It talked about this black female who had this home, and she took in, it was before, crack hit the community. It was in the 40s and 50s. She had this home, and she took in stragglers from the South, people who wanted to come up from the South, who didn't have no other place to go. They said they weren't going to be in any trouble. They didn't have a lot of money, but they would pay for board, and they worked. She would take these people in, take men in, women in, give them room and board in their home. So, it's not like, and nowadays, if blacks don't have a place to go, they just become homeless, right? They just become homeless. If they don't have any family members, they become homeless, or they go between being homeless and in and out of jails. But Lackawanna Blues just show how blacks used to take care of each other before the hit of drugs and feminism. Because the Lackawanna Blues was about a woman who had a home, who she used to take in. She was taking in men and women, from the street, but you don't have that anymore. So nowadays, you don't even have anyone taking care of black children. These are full grown people coming up from the South, but you don't have anyone looking out for black children. So usually if no one wants them, they go to the state. The state has too many kids that aren't wanted as it is. So a lot of these black females, they'll get the kids back by default, because they don't want to give them to the men for obvious reasons. They want to, they don't want the men in the household. So they'll give it back to this drug addict female. And a lot of times it ends drastically, man. I mean, she killed this 5-month-old baby, man, by taking his feet and slamming him against the wall. Killed him. And I've heard about a lot of stories with females killing their own children because they won't stop crying or because of some stupid shit. A kid's supposed to cry. But I mean, it's crazy, man. But I definitely wanted to touch on that, man, about how the community has become this way ultimately because of the failure of black male leadership. I saw a lot of weak black men. When I came up, I was a part of this boxing. I used to box as a teenager. I was in Rochester, New York. I was a member of Baden Street Settlement. It was a actually, it was a school. It was a number 9 school. They had a gym, a community recreation center where you could box, and they had a ring, and they had this coach, black male coach. His name was like Coach Johnson or something like that, and he was a very bitter man, not a strong leader, very weak. He was supposed to be the boxing coach, but he was trying to do football as well, and he wasn't really there for boxing. Me and him never. I didn't like him. He didn't like me. It was another guy in the gym. He was a professional in the gym. He couldn't stop the guy from coming to the gym because he didn't own the gym. He wanted to make people think that he did own the gym, but he did not own the gym. But the guy used to come to the gym, but the guy had his own coach. The guy didn't want Coach Johnson coaching him because Coach Johnson was a mean-spirited person. I mean, all his rejections in life, his disappointments, his anger, his victim, he probably had a victim mentality, all that boiled up. And you know how someone, just like you can tell someone with a person, you'll meet a person for the first time, they have a beautiful energy about them. Well, and you can just tell by meeting them about their personality or their strengths, where there has to be a lot inside of a person in order for you to feel their aura from the outside. So that means they're possessed with that internally, that inner power that they have or lack thereof. It has to be a lot of it in order for them to project energy. There has to be a lot inside. And that goes for positive and negative. So when you meet a person that's positive, there has to be a lot of positivity inside in order for you to feel it on the outside. Because sometimes people can have a lot of positivity, but it's not enough for you to feel it outside. They just started the process. But this guy had years of disappointments, anger, victim mentality, disappointments, anger, frustrations. A lot of things probably didn't go his way throughout life, and you can feel that anger within him, and it projected out. And as far as the boxing went, it was a white guy who was looked at as the primary person that pretty much was the how can I say it? He was pretty much the guy that everyone looked to as being the father of amateur boxing in Rochester, New York. Now, this black coach, he probably could have had that title, but he was so unliked by everyone. No one that had a specimen of positivity in them wanted to, team up with him because he had so much negative energy. And he used to tell us, like, most people ain't gonna like you because they don't like me. But that's because he had a lot of negative energy in him. And one female, her name was Miss Peak. She became I think I watched CNN a few years back. She was a coach on the Olympic team for the females in 2016, I want to say. And they talked about her on CNN, and she was my coach for a while. He used to always bash her because she was more popular in the city than he was, Miss Peak. But when you talk to Miss Peak, man, she had a very different mentality than Johnson. She was stern and focused, but you didn't feel that negative energy that that you got from Coach Johnson. You didn't feel that negativity. You know, you can tell more things went her way in her life and things of that nature. She didn't have a victim mentality. But my point is, there's a lot of black men who were placed in leadership roles who failed. It's a lot of brothers who were from the street who went to guys like this coach, and they went to him for reconciliation, or they went to him to find a way so they can find a way out of the streets through boxing, and he failed them. Just like a lot of the black men have failed the black community. Weak black men. And the same anger he had in him is the same anger I felt my grandmother, the same disappointment and anger I felt in my grandfather, and in my mother. And it's not to say that white supremacy wasn't a part of this, a big component, but there was a lot of when you have missed opportunities, and when you have things that don't go your way consistently, you can fall into the category of that person who gives off that negative energy, and they hold on to that hatred and all of the things, the disappointments, the failures, that they have, and sometimes it's a failure that they have blown up. Maybe it's not as big as it's not a failure that's as big as they're projecting it to be, but because they're projecting it to be so huge, it builds up more anger within them. And that anger becomes poison because you spread that on to other generations, and other generations who didn't even have the anger, but you spread that on to them. Now, I was lucky enough to escape spiritually, but that negativity from guys like that is what caused us to be where we are now. It's part of the component that caused that. It's one of the variables that we can control that we don't. Because guys like that shouldn't be ahead of the Coach Johnsons, the weak guys. They shouldn't be ahead of rec centers. It should be the guy like Johnny. It was a guy, he was a professional boxer. He wasn't that successful. He used to give me a ride every day to back and home from the gym and home. He'd take me home after boxing practice. He should be ahead of the gyms. But a lot of the black community, they're taught to idolize the wicked people, the people with the most problems, the drug dealers, the pimps, people with the most anger and frustration. We put them in leadership positions, and they shouldn't be in those positions. And those are the variables we can control. Like Dr. Kinjufu talked about, back when he was writing, we can't control the moves of Ronald Reagan. Certain things you can't control. When they put drugs and guns in your community, you can't control that aspect. It's going to be very hard to control that at this point. But the variables we can control, having weak black men in leadership positions, like having them lead the recreation centers, black women keeping weak black men in the homes, if they have a man in the home at all, they'll put someone weak there. Us idolizing drug dealers, pimps, players. And I know a lot of that comes from enjoying the blaxploitation films, but when we look at reality, these are bad decisions. These are variables we can control that we are doing a piss poor job in controlling, putting all the weak in the positions of power. Like Dr. Kunju said, you can't control Ronald Reagan or George Bush Jr. or Barack Obama or Donald Trump. You can't control their moves, but the variables we can control, having responsible blacks in leadership positions at the rec centers, our community leaders, not Farrakhan, but the ones we put in control of the recreation centers and whatever else, even if it's something like a housing project or the men that are in in the homes. I mean, idolizing drug dealers and pimps and prostitutes. Those are the variables we can control that we don't as a community. And when I say community, I mean blacks, not just blacks who live in the inner city, but copper colored people all around the U.S., but specifically in the inner city because we put the wrong people in leadership positions. We hold the wrong people in high regard, and that helps. That assists in having us all suffer. And putting the weak in trauma. It's like my mother one time, she laughed at me because when I was a kid, I didn't know what a bail bondsman was for. So she idolized, but looking at her life, she was with a white man who had been in jail. She was with my father who had been in jail. So she was a part of that weakness that's in our community. So she revered the weak, the people going in and out of prisons, going in and out of jail. Not the ones going in and out of prisons because they were revolutionaries or because there are people who are like Bill Cosby, they're high-profile figures, so they have to find a way to stop them. No, but people who go on the jail and prisons for petty charges for drugs, and they can't stay away from cocaine and the marijuana and all this stuff. We idolize the weak. I think my grandfather's favorite kid is the second kid, and she was the only one who got hooked on drugs. We idolize the weak. So ultimately, the community is going to be weak. So, and that's how a lot of our black men have the black males that I saw, who led our community were some of them were very weak. So now with guys like me coming up, most young guys just totally dismiss me in terms of, say I'm in my 40s and they're in their 20s. I try to give them advice, they'll totally dismiss me. And I can't think that probably has happened because of what I saw in terms of when my generation wanted to look to the older men for support. All we found was drunks, drug addicts, or bitter black men. So we were failed, and now the other future generation are not even going to bother listening to me, even if I have my shit together. So that has become problematic. But I just want to touch on that. Weak older black men failing the community. I don't know why I have such a hard time saying that word. But be sure to like, subscribe, and leave your comments below. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Positives and negatives about the video. Be sure to hit that bell, and y'all be safe, all right? Y'all take care.